Welcome to Draft Professor, everybody. Join with Price Carter. Price and I are going to preview the Bills-Chiefs game because he's a draft professor. I'm a draft professor. He's a Chiefs fan. I'm a Bills fan. What else are we supposed to do? But Price, it's been a few weeks since we've seen each other, but how are you doing?
I'm doing really well. It's that time of year where it's just super busy. Believe it or not, the college football season's already starting to wind down. I think I heard Dane Brugler say on a podcast that we basically know who these players are going to be, what their years are like. And it's like, oh my gosh, he's right. He really is. So I'm starting to dig in a little bit more. I'm starting to do a weekly kind of short for Arrowhead Addict where it's primetime prospects, pick two prospects in one of the college football's biggest games, how they work for the Chiefs, and who should they be watching, type of thing. So getting more and more into the draft, and it's always really busy for some of the work I do at FTN, where I'm charting a couple of games a week and stuff. So burning the midnight oil, but it's great, and football makes it totally worth it.
Yeah. So what are your immediate thoughts on how the Chiefs started the season and where they are now?
Well, I think obviously it has been a tale of two seasons. It's very clear, the way that the season started. It started out very unusual with them going down to Brazil and playing the Chargers, a divisional game in Brazil. And, the international program, the Chiefs have been one of the largest proponents of it historically. I mean, even dating back to, there were Chiefs players who played in the preseason when the Berlin Wall fell. Tim Grunhard, who goes on the radio station I go on here in Kansas City, he still has a piece of the Berlin Wall inside of his house that he was there when that, after it had come down, you could go pick up a piece of it. And the Chiefs have been huge proponents of it. But the Brazil game was kind of a disaster last year, and it kind of was a disaster this year. It reportedly took the Chiefs over an hour and a half to get from their hotel on a bus to the stadium. And I don't know if you saw the videos that they were doing for the walkthrough. I mean, it looked like a city that might have a population of 300 football field. It was just a weird start to the season for them, and they lost that game. And then they come out and they face the Super Bowl champion Eagles, and really that game was very tight. And if it wasn't for a touchdown that goes off of Travis Kelce's hands into a defender's hands, and they take it back for a huge return. I mean, that was the play that swung that whole game. But now the Chiefs, it's just very clear. They start off the season with two plays of Xavier Worthy. He gets hurt. Rashee Rice is suspended. And honestly, I think the most surprising thing is you come into the season, one of the biggest talking points all offseason is what is this Chiefs offensive line going to look like? How is it going to protect? And it's frankly been one of the quietest storylines all year. And there's just been other things that have popped up. Losing Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy was a massive loss. And pretty much every time they've added one of those weapons back, the offense has jumped up another level. So it's really to a point now where it's like this team is 5-3. This point in the year, they were 8-0. And they are more dangerous right now than they were when they were at 8-0. They are having more fun than they were having when they were in 8-0. And honestly, they should be a bigger threat now. And you're wearing a Bills jersey, I'm wearing a Chiefs Super Bowl hoodie here. We're obviously blind homers a little bit, but also I think most of the NFL perception wide is that the Chiefs are more dangerous than they have been because of what they can do offensively. And the defense is still a top half of the unit league.
So the Chiefs are 5-3, but I'm looking at the games, looking at the scores specifically. Every Chiefs loss has been by one score, right?
Yeah.
And ultimately, for as much as people want to think, I want to say it's linear. Oh, the team with the better players, they win all the games against teams that don't have as many good players, right? So meaning that people are just looking at the games on paper. I can think back to what was it? Buffalo a couple years ago, every one of their wins was double digit, meaning that they weren't in close games. Whereas, okay, so if you're in a close game, the ball could bounce. The Chiefs could be 8-0 or 5-3. That's going to come down to maybe 3 to 5 plays a game. And I actually think that's where the Bills Chiefs game will end up, right? We'll be able to look at each other Sunday night or Monday and say it was these 5 plays that seemed to have a bigger impact than the other 120 plays that were in the game.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, anytime you get these two quarterbacks on the field together, you just know that it's going to be a tight game. I mean, there's a reason why this game is consistently 3:30 by CBS, because it's one of the games that they bid first on. I mean, if you had to put every single NFL game up on a board, Chiefs Bills might be the top pick or a top 2 or 3 pick. I mean, yep. I remember seeing tweets during the AFC Championship last year that's like, just make Chiefs Bills the Super Bowl every year. Like, it's a guaranteed great game, and we don't always get that in Super Bowls. So yeah, it's certainly going to be like that. And like, to your point, I think a lot of people, and again, the Patriots, they were always looking for ways to make themselves into underdogs, right? Like, I remember when they came into Kansas City in 2018, they were the underdog, and they took that so personal. And at the time, being a Chiefs fan who was just like, 1, fresh out of school, like out of college, and 2, just kind of starting to enter into a dynasty phase with the Chiefs, I remember thinking that was so hokey and corny and whatever. And now I get it a little bit more, because like, these teams, they have to do it year after year. They have to redefine themselves. They have to motivate themselves. And it's hard whenever you have gone and done what the Chiefs have done. But some of the motivation this year was like, everyone was pointing to what they had last year and saying that they were the worst 15-2 team ever, and that it was a total fluke that they made it where they were, and that, they had no business being there, and that all these 1-score wins were going to regress and they were going to be worse because of it. Now, it kind of depends on what argument you want to make. If we're doing a Lincoln Douglas style debate here, you can pick one side and say, well, they've already lost more games this year than they lost last year. Clearly that 1-score regression has come for them. Or you can look at the win column and say, they're not playing close games, so that stat can't regress. And that did look true, right, at 0-2 when they lost a 1-score game to the Chargers. They had a chance to go and get that game, and Chris Jones loses contain on the edge, and Justin Herbert slides and inbounds, and the game's over. And then we talked about that Travis Kelce turnover against the Eagles. Like, that is that, like, 1 possession regression to the mean. But it also goes back to, like, I feel like this is a better team than it was. They can protect better. They have far better weapons. Patrick Mahomes is playing better. I would say the defense is what it was last year. I think the linebackers are playing a little bit better. I think the pass rush is a little worse than it was last year. Like, I just don't think Chris Jones is the massive force that he was last year. And the coverage is still really good. Brian Cook and Shamari Connor and Jaden Hicks are all playing really well at the safety position. Noel Williams has been a revelation on the outside corner spot, so much so that Christian Fulton, who they signed a $20 million deal, is a healthy scratch, which is another story. But overall, I think like the tail of the 1-scores and the big drafts or the big wins are just, that's not something that's been on the menu for a little bit. And it felt like you could never, ever predict the Chiefs to win big. It's like, okay, well, let's settle in for 3.5 hours of misery of a game that they should win, but will make close for some reason. Well,
and you raised a good point that I wanted to talk about, and that was, so the Chiefs lost 2 games to open the season, right? So they lost to the Chargers and then the Eagles the first 2 weeks. So I was doing some reading on the Ravens, right? They're not playing each other, they're not playing the Bills or the Chiefs on Sunday, but some of the reading on the Ravens is they didn't recover from their opening week loss to Buffalo. And I think if we would have sat down in August, we would have said the 3 best AFC teams are the Bills, the Chiefs, and the Ravens, and some more. Right? With the Chiefs probably being up top because you've earned that. Right? But, okay, so look at the Chiefs starting 0-2. They have the right leadership at QB and head coach. They fixed it. That's what good teams do. Right? You're not going to win every game, right? There's only been 2 teams in the last 53 years that have gone through an NFL regular season without a loss. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah,
so good teams like the Chiefs and the Bills are going to lose. You just don't want to lose very often.
And I think, like to your point, like to turn the tide here, I mean, you had similar for the Bills in 2023. They lose that overtime game to the Eagles. They're sitting at 6-6. They weren't even in position to win the division. They didn't win the division until that final game against the Dolphins. They finished the year 11-6, ended up hosting the Chiefs in the playoffs. To the Ravens thing, like there's someone needs to do some talking about Harbaugh at some point. Like the stats have shown of his inability to close out games and some of the big leads that they've blown and stuff. And, I think Lamar Jackson is grown immensely as a player, as a passer, but there's still some limitations, and they have always been vulnerable to game scripts. And I think like this stuff has levels, right? Like me and you were having a back and forth on Twitter a little bit about the Broncos and how you thought that they were one of the favorites in the AFC. And Bo Nix is not going to win a couple, like in that situation, he's going to have to play a playoff game against Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, the Colts, and one of those is certainly going to be on the road and then go up to Buffalo. Like, I just don't see that happening because there's just levels to this of, can you, when everyone in the world knows you're passing, go and do it? Can you, whenever you're down 0-10, get a run? And that's the thing is like, I do believe that there are some very good teams in the AFC, and I believe there's some really bad teams in the AFC right now. And we're in a position right now where it's like there's some new faces, right, with the Colts and the Patriots, those type of things. But how many of those faces are ones that you trust to get the ball down 7 with 47 seconds left to win a game? And that's where the heaviest the head that wears the crown of these two quarterbacks, of these guys who have proven that they can do it. And, obviously, like, I'm sure there's a few Chiefs fans watching, like Josh Allen has played incredible in the playoffs. Like his stats in the playoffs, he gets better in the playoffs, which is crazy because he is such a good quarterback. He's proven that he can go and do that. To his credit and to his, chagrin, his defense is what's let him down most of the time. Now, he had a chance to go win the game in Kansas City. He wasn't able to, but overall, I think for him, he's got to look and say, he's got to be able to make those plays when they matter most, but also he needs some help.
Yeah. So I like that you dropped Noah Williams. That was a player in the draft that I was hoping was going to solve some of Buffalo's corner issues. What should a Bills fan expect to see differently? Like, if this isn't the 2024 Kansas City Chiefs, like, what's different about the Chiefs this year than, the Bills and the Chiefs, I think, have played 2 times a year for like the last 3 or 4 years. It's not like we're strangers to each other, but what's new, like schematically, or is there a player that you think we should be watching for that we haven't heard of yet if we're Bills fans?
Well, first off, the Chiefs' first-round pick, Josh Simmons, he will likely not be playing. He's been excused from the team for some personal reasons. That's about it. As much about it as I do, and I cover the team. So there's that, but it does sound like he's probably going to be back. They're expecting him back after the bye week, which is following the Bills game. So they should get him back. I do think Jalen Moore, the guy who they signed a big contract to, he has played really, really well at left tackle. He's not Josh Simmons. Like, you can see he's a different style of player. Like, Simmons has just such, and Simmons was awesome when he was starting. And that has been a revelation for this team to find not 1, but 2 good starting left tackles after seemingly not being able to do it at all. Kingsley Suamataia, the second-round pick out of BYU last year, he failed at tackle pretty horribly. He has just come in and played very respectable guard for them. He's at left guard, and he is frequently grading as, kind of a top 30-ish guard in the league right now, which is, again, huge considering you expected a massive drop-off from Joe Thuney, and that's not been as massive. Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith. Trey Smith missed last game with a back injury. He is practicing today, so hopefully they're there. And then Juwan Taylor, who has been the ire of Chiefs fans a lot with penalties. But when he doesn't get penalties, he is a great pass protector, and he has not had a penalty called on him the last 3 or 4 weeks, and he is asked to do a lot. They put him on an island, and he's done well. So I think the biggest thing, though, is like, Bills fans are familiar with the Chiefs. Chiefs fans are familiar with the Chiefs. Even Chiefs fans, I think, forgot what this offense looked like when it's run through Rashee Rice. And his return is immense for this offense. They were playing well before because they were getting great play out of Tyquan Thornton. They had Xavier Worthy back. And also, I'll say Travis Kelce looks like the best version of himself we've seen in 3 years. He's on pace for over 1,000 yards this season. He's second in the NFL in tight ends and receiving yards. Now, some of that's because the bye weeks and stuff, but he just had a 99-yard game. Juju Smith-Schuster looks a little bit refreshed. This offense runs through Rashee Rice, though. And his ability, like basically the things that they used to do with Travis Kelce in 2020 and 2021, Rashee Rice does that now. And, his ability to find space and be so explosive after the catch, him and Mahomes see the field the same way. He's a weapon after the catch. I mean, I just finished grading their game, and they have orbit motions where they put him in motion behind Patrick Mahomes. He comes out as a swing pass. You've already got the offensive lineman pulling, and it's basically a functioning screen with him with a head start. I mean, last week they had him read out a quarterback, running back power, and he just almost scores. Like, he's like on the 1 inch line. So Rashee Rice is definitely a big part of it. But this offense now, whereas before, like you think about the playoff game in 2023, that game was Kelce, Rice, Pacheco. That was the entire offense, and then the defense is going to have to bail us out. Now this offense is, we've got a sprinkle of Worthy. We've got a sprinkle of Tyquan Thornton. Hollywood Brown's playing well, on pace for over 600 yards. Travis Kelce's the best version of himself. Oh, yeah, Noah Gray's still a guy. Oh, yeah, Kareem Hunt can, still do some things for them. And really the offense is so much more multiple. The defense, like I said, it's a lot of the same, where, like, I think if you look at the defensive talent for the Chiefs, you're not going to be overwhelmed. You're not going to say, wow, this is a star-studded cast. The superstar for the Chiefs defense is on the sidelines wearing the headset. And that's Steve Spagnuolo. This defense is made in his image, and the players have been in the scheme for such a long time that it can be incredibly complex. And the head of that is Nick Bolton, who is their general on the field, a player who we will never be able to fully measure how good he is, because he does have moments like, if we're talking about matchups for the Bills to exploit James Cook, Dawson Knox, Dalton Kincaid, and the passing game on Nick Bolton, that's a win for the Bills. But what he can do on the field is massive for them. And then, they've went younger at safety. Like, they've traditionally had a Tyrann Mathieu or a Justin Reed back there. Now their veteran is Brian Cook, who is having a career year for him. He's played really well. Jaden Hicks is playing well. They use Shamari Connor in a hybrid safety slot corner role. And that would be the other spot that I would really point out about matchups, by the way. Like, I'm going to throw things at my house if I have to see Shamari Connor trailing Khalil Shakir in this game. Like, Trent McDuffie, he is one of the best slot corners in the NFL. He needs to be handling Khalil Shakir, because in the passing game, that's the guy that really scares you. I mean, he had a big catch and touchdown after the catch against the Panthers. That's the guy that, like, I worry about. But mostly on the defense, it's the same. But the offense and the new faces and how they're being utilized, it's what made this offense look and be one of the best offenses in the NFL. I mean, they're second in EPA per play. They're second in offensive DVOA. The offense is back, and it's explosive. And I think it's helping the defense too.
Yeah. So one of the things that I think all Bills fans are thinking of is that the defense the first 6 weeks and the defense last week had 4 out of the 11 players on the field were drastically different. Shaq Thompson replaced Terrell Bernard at linebacker. I think Bernard is back for the Chiefs, but they're different types of linebackers, and Shaq Thompson matched up much better against the Panthers. But then Maxwell Hairston, he was probably drafted to cover Xavier Worthy.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, he was the fastest guy at the combine this year. Maxwell Hairston was, so that makes sense. How has Harris? Obviously, I didn't get a chance to look at the tape. How much did he play, and how did he look in his snaps?
So he had one specific tackle where basically all of Bills Mafia was saying, okay, that's why we drafted him. So it was just, a simple pass pattern where he was in off coverage, but by the time the ball hit the receiver, he was tackled. Right. So He was playing with a cushion, came up, click, close, made the tackle. And when he did that, because one of the knocks on Hairston was he didn't tackle.
Which is weird, because a lot of the Kentucky guys are pretty feisty. Like, you think back to, who's the guy? I'm trying to remember. There's a guy, a slot CB from Kentucky a year or two ago. The Chiefs have played him this year. He's fiery. Like, a lot of their corners do come down and hit. And
then Larry Ogunjobi came back from suspension last week. Michael Hoyt came back from suspension last week. And the name that the Chiefs fans will be hearing a lot on defense is Michael Hoyt. So Buffalo had been missing like an edge linebacker hybrid under McDermott for the better part of 5 or 6 years. Lorenzo Alexander, when McDermott became the head coach, Lorenzo Alexander, I believe I have that name right, came from the Panthers to the Bills. And he was a special teams guy. It was your typical, we're signing a guy to play special teams. And then it turned out that he had several double-digit sack seasons in Buffalo. Some plays he was linebacker, some plays he was edge, but he was a player that they could move around the defense. Buffalo has that now with Michael Hoyt. Missed the first 6 games with a suspension. But if Hoyt stays healthy, I think Buffalo's defense is a different defense than it was the first 6 weeks. And then add to that, Hairston playing opposite Christian Benford. Benford is not having a good year. So it would not surprise me to see the Chiefs targeting Taron Johnson and Christian Benford, throwing away from Maxwell Hairston, if that makes any sense.
Drew Phillips, my buddies over at All Chiefed Up are watching, and they just tweeted at me. Drew Phillips was the guy I was thinking of.
There you go.
The other cornerback. Yeah, and that's something that I've been. I mean, like, let's be clear: out of the 4 units in this game, Chiefs offense, Chiefs defense, Bills offense, Bills defense. The Bills defense is the worst unit.
Yes.
In almost any metric you look at. Which, by the way, like, while we're having coaches come sit and have a conversation on the carpet, that's a Sean McDermott thing. Whenever you're one of the teams that, like, that's your side of the ball, and they consistently let down Josh Allen and the offense. But that's a little higher level conversation. I mean,
but it's fair because one of the things that changed last week is that we saw McDermott with a play sheet in his hand.
Yeah.
Right. So the first 6 weeks, Babich was calling plays, and
Okay.
it looked like against the Panthers, it went back to McDermott. So if McDermott calls the defense, it will be more aggressive, more blitzes, more press coverage. McDermott is going to call a more aggressive defense than Babich or Leslie Frazier ever did. So,
yeah. And, one thing that I've been interested is, like, it has felt like forever that the Bills don't have a closer. That's what they brought Von Miller in to do. And he didn't live up to that contract. He didn't live up to the expectations. He obviously gets hurt, was playing well before the injury. They've got a better version of Joey Bosa. I'm interested to see what this defensive line looks. The best defensive player, in my opinion, on the Bills is not going to be in this game and probably won't play this season in Ed Oliver. That's a huge loss for the Bills. Mm-hmm. And, I see the vision here that what they're doing with Michael Hoyt, who's kind of this, like, tweener that can be moved all around. I think that they've made themselves more solid against the run. Ogunjobi's, like, a fine guy, but if I'm the Bills defense, I'm just not sure what their plan is in this game, especially whenever you consider the vulnerability at safety. I mean, the Bills have been attacked at safety. I mean, if I'm the Chiefs, I'm going to at least test them down the field with Tyquan Thornton, with Xavier Worthy. And I mean, Tyquan Thornton, it cannot be stated enough how good he has been down the field. His snaps have been limited the last couple of weeks with the return of Rashee Rice. So that's something as a Chiefs fan, I don't want to see go away because he's their best field stretcher. He's been better than Xavier Worthy in that place. Him and Mahomes seem to have better chemistry. And I think we get a better version of Xavier Worthy where he is a do-it-all guy, where he can be a screen guy, he can be a gadget guy, but then also, like last week, they run him on a motion behind the quarterback and he is on a wheel route. He gets lost in the defense, huge 33-yard gain. So if I'm the Chiefs, that's a spot that I'm looking for. And then, like Matt Milano, he is not the player that he used to be. And I think that is where Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce and Juju Smith-Schuster live. And they have been really powerful in that area. Now, one thing I will say about the Chiefs offense is Isaiah Pacheco is not practicing today. He's probably not going to play in this game. Isaiah Pacheco certainly isn't what I would describe the needle mover of the Chiefs offense. But he has at least given them a couple explosives in the ground. The Chiefs have been, I put out a stat last week. The Chiefs have been better in short yardage than the tush push this year with Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt's awesome in short yardage, but you don't want Kareem Hunt taking 30 carries in a game. Brashard Smith he's closer to a wide receiver than he is a running back right now, which obviously is his background, right, from SMU. He only played running back 1 year there, but they use him a ton in the screen game. He gets a few design carries, and usually they're like outside zone. It was nice. They had a triple option set up with him last week, but I don't know how the Chiefs would be able to, like, if you're going to, if you're the Bills, like, do you just kind of invite the run? That's kind of what McDermott does anyway. Like, I could see them sitting in too high and playing way back. And if that's the case, I feel like it is going to be a Travis Kelce and Rashee Rice game, and that they will pepper them there and take their chances there. But that's really the only way you can see for the Bills defense.
Yeah, so here's a couple of interesting stats. So as you said, I think the Bills defense of the 4 primary units in the game is the worst of the 4. So no argument for me there. The Bills rush defense. More than 50% of the plays go for 2 yards or less. And I believe that leads the league. But Buffalo is last or 31st in the league in EPA per run. So if you're not being held for 2 yards or less, you're gashing the defense.
Yeah, and I mean, we all saw like Bijan go berserk on them, and
missed tackles. Oh my God, this defense is missing tackles.
And they're unathletic. Like, that's just the thing. They're unathletic at that position. They've got Trey White, like, still running around out there. Taylor Rapp is a replacement level player at best. There's just so many guys out there that are slow and unathletic, and that's a huge part of them. And go ahead.
Rapp got a soft bench last week for Jordan Poyer. So theoretically, last week Rapp was on the injured list. Theoretically.
Yeah. Okay. So is Micah Hyde, like, is he suiting up for this game too? I was just checking, like, bro, just one more 2020 bill, and I promise it'll all be fixed. Just one more. Like, we just got to get. I'm trying to think of another 2020 bill on here. Just one more.
Yeah. So Poyer was being okay. So Buffalo in the draft grabbed 3 defensive backs. Dorian Strong, I believe, is on IR. Maxwell Hairston, who returned from IR last week, and Jordan Hancock from Ohio State. So last week, Poyer started, but Hancock was rotated in about 1 series a quarter. So one of the things that I'm looking forward to, Price, is when we play each other again, because there will be an again, right? There always is, right? I think the Bills team, the second time we play in the playoffs, is going to look different, because I don't think Hairston is going to get starter level snaps, right? I think Trey White still needs to play some.
Yeah.
But by the time we get to the playoffs, it needs to be all Hairston and Benford at the corner, with Hancock and Bishop at the safeties. And then Teron Johnson right now, I actually thought he was Buffalo's best defensive player for like the last 6 or 7 years. He's reverted to the mean.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that Bills fans are saying, okay, we might be in the market for a slot corner in the upcoming
which is a good place to be, because those are a little bit more findable. Like, you can find those out there. And it reminds me a little bit of the 2021 Chiefs. Like, they started out that year. That was one of the years that they started out like 2-4 or 3-4 or something. And the defense was just painfully unathletic. They were still playing Ben Neiman. They were still playing Dan Sorensen. They were running some of these less athletic guys out there. And eventually, like, they weren't playing Juan Thornhill for some reason. He had gotten like a soft benching. And eventually it came to the point that's like, these guys are so unathletic that not only can they not recover if they make a mistake, if they hesitate, they also cannot make up for when they do blow a coverage. Let the kids play, and that's something that, like, Steve Spagnuolo has gotten a lot better about letting the kids play, getting them out earlier. We talked about Noah Williams. Ashton Gelati is all right. He's been a decent player. Right now, I think he's like a net neutral. He's not a net negative, which is good. Omar Norman-Lott showed some promise before he went down with the ACL injury, but they've got to let the kids play, right? And I think for the Bills, like, that's your best shot, is to get youth and get more explosive there, where, hey, they might blow a coverage, but they're going to be able to recover, and they're going to be able to at least have the speed and athleticism to make a tackle, right? Like, that's where missed tackles come from, is a lack of athleticism and being able to close in on them. I want to ask you on the flip side, but before we switch to Bills offense, Chiefs defense, we got it. You're wearing a number 0 jersey. We got to dive into the dialogue. How, going back, do you wish that how do you view the Keon Coleman, Xavier Worthy trade? I've already seen Bills fan. They're moving the goalpost. Now it's like, oh, well, we should have drafted Lad McConkey, not Xavier Worthy. And it's like, well, I mean, you also gave the Chiefs a pick. And by the way, the other thing is forgive me, Cole Bishop, that's the safety. The Chiefs used the 4th round pick that the Bills gave them in that trade where they moved up and stuff. Like Jaden Hicks has been better than Cole Bishop, and Xavier Worthy's been better than Keon Coleman. So where do you sit on the Keon Coleman dialogue and Keon Coleman as a player in general?
Okay, so going into that draft, and I was at that draft in Detroit. I was there with some friends. I said Buffalo is drafting a Xavier. That was what I basically was saying all day, right? We get to Buffalo, I think it was pick 28, and they traded the pick for Worthy, but they still had the pick 32. And I said, oh, we're just going to get Leggett. We're going to get the other Xavier.
Yeah.
I wanted Leggett.
Which, it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell in Carolina.
So, okay. So I don't think Worthy would have been Buffalo's pick had they had their choice of the receivers. Buffalo was going to draft an X wide receiver. I don't think, going into that draft, McConkey had some injury concerns.
Yeah, he did.
Pearsall went higher than McConkey, yet a lot of people had McConkey higher on their boards than Pearsall.
Yes.
The reason that Pearsall went higher is because he had a cleaner bill of health. So I'm really good with revisionist history. Like you mentioned the whole Lincoln Douglas debates thing. Like I didn't know you had that level of history in you, but I can remember, right? I mean, there's a reason that I run Draft Professor, right? I remember this crap. So Buffalo was going to draft an X that would have not been McConkey, that would have not been Worthy. Buffalo, that wide receiver room was missing an X. So it was going to be the Keon Colemans of the world, the Xavier Leggett's of the world, or you could go further back in the draft. But if you really look at that, Coleman was the last X.
So I guess my question is, by the way, I do not remember Lincoln or Douglas, and I don't think you do either. Hopefully, high school debate is where that came from, Lincoln Douglas. Wow. But that's another story for another day. So I guess my question would be, correct me if I'm wrong. That was the year that they had already traded Stephon Diggs that season, correct?
Correct. So we were going into the draft minus the wide receiver.
Yeah. So you've got your slot with Shakir, and he's by far the best wide receiver. I guess there's two things here. One, giving the Chiefs what they want. Like no matter if the Chiefs took a guard there or whatever, giving the Chiefs what they want, I think is part of the pushback. And then you have the Coleman versus Worthy dialogue. I guess my thing for the Bills is, you just said yourself, Maxwell Harrison was drafted to cover Xavier Worthy, to cover Hollywood Brown. That's like paying for your own sins there a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, and who knows? Like, there's so much of this that like just comes down to we'll never know. Like, we'll never know if the Chiefs could have sat at 32 and got Worthy. From what I had heard, the 49ers really liked Worthy, and they were primed to take him. But with that being said, I guess I don't understand why the Bills, who have such a talented down the field thrower like Josh Allen, refuse to load up on speed. I mean, my God, they've got Gabe Davis returning to practice today. What are we doing? Like, why can't they stretch the field? Why? Because, I mean, my thing with Keon Coleman is like the separation metrics were all there to say that this guy ran 3 or 4 routes at Florida State and didn't separate. You're taking a guy who's an athlete who, by the way, was an average contested catch. Like he had a highlight catch every week at Florida State. But then when you go back and look at the sample size, he was an average like contested catch guy, and he's more or less proven to do that. And then also something that I thought popped on the tape for him, that like the football intelligence with him is just not great. Like it seems like once a week or twice a week, or there's always something, a football ricocheting off him. He's running out of bounds to catch a pass, those type of things.
So I'm wearing a Keon Coleman jersey, and I will support the guys. I was not happy at the moment with the Keon Coleman pick. I will say, I think the bigger question mark out of that trade is DeWayne Carter, who is the 3rd round pick that Buffalo, right? Because Buffalo took a 4th round pick, moved it up into round 3, and took like a 6th round pick and moved it up into like round 5 with that Worthy trade. DeWayne Carter has been a bust. And that, I think, Keon Coleman is who we thought he was going to be. And I make the statement that Keon Coleman's body type is going to play 8 to 10 years in the NFL, right? Whereas Xavier Worthy, is he going to get a second contract? Because once a fast player becomes slow, they're less effective, but a big player is always going to be big. Keon Coleman is always going to be a mismatch for a small corner, right?
Yeah. And I think, one thing that I think with Worthy, and we'll wrap here soon because I know you got to get going, but I mean, one thing with Worthy is just the idea that he was John Ross 2.0, which is like something that was peddled. Like people who watch the tape, like this guy does run real routes, and he is a technician and has been, for what he's worth, better at the catch point than I think a lot of people expect. I mean, he has went up and got some balls. The injury concerns are always going to be there with him, his size. I mean, like maybe Travis Kelce doesn't almost decapitate him when they cross on mesh in week 1 if he's not 165 pounds. So I think that there's still some concerns there. Like, truth be told, I think, maybe both Chiefs fans and Bills fans tell themselves like, oh, well, maybe Ladd McConkey was the right choice. It's just an interesting dialogue because of the trade, because of what happened. And these two teams see each other so frequently. And you've got Xavier Worthy having a big game, the AFC Championship game. And he had a big game in the first game against Buffalo up in Orchard Park. So it'll be interesting to see if that's where they go. But I think the Chiefs offense runs through Rashee Rice. Let's real quick, while we're talking Bills offense, James Cook looks incredible. I mean, he looks like a top 2 or 3 back in the NFL. We know that the Bills are going to want to get under center and run the ball. The 6 offensive linemen, are they still doing that as much? Is it still as frequent? Like, I know that was the thing there for a little bit.
I need to introduce you to
Jackson Haas. Jackson Haas. Yes.
Okay. So Buffalo went from, to your point, they ran 6 offensive linemen, I think, at a higher clip than any team in the league. Right. And we were using our 6th offensive lineman, Alec Anderson. Right. And he's a really good, he can back up at center, back up at guard. He is that swing offensive lineman that every good NFL team needs, right? Can back up multiple positions. We drafted Jackson Haas. I believe that was around 6 pick. It may have been around 5 pick. And Haas is a blocking tight end. The Bills tight end coach says the best blocking tight end he's ever seen. But all draft circles pretty much said, yeah, he's the best blocking tight end in the class. So Buffalo drafted him. He's tight end 3. Knox, Kincaid. We have Haas too. But Haas gets way more snap share than a number 3 tight end. So, and for example, in the Ravens game, he caught a big pass to put Buffalo inside the 10. Almost scored, right? So he's only going to get a couple targets a game. He's not going to catch a lot of passes, but Buffalo does throw to the tight ends a decent amount, whether it's Knox, Kincaid, or Haas. We're throwing to that position when they're on the field. So I'm thrilled with Haas. There's a reason that James Cook is having such a good year. And as far as I am concerned, Buffalo will go this year as James Cook takes them, right? Yeah, we have Josh, but this is a different attitude with this offense. There was no reason to pass against Carolina because we were gashing them for 10 yards at a time running the ball.
Yeah, and, first off, as someone who, watches lots of Noah Gray blocking, I don't understand why NFL teams don't invest more in these tight ends that can block. You see guys like Jackson Haas or Darnell Washington just on the field constantly. There's clearly value in that. And I understand it's kind of a rare skill set, but to your point, Jackson Haas is more of a threat to catch a ball and do something with it than Alec Anderson, right? That's where that is that mismatch ability, right? So James Cook is scary. The Chiefs have been great against the run for the most part this year. Leo Chanel, I think, is going to be a big part of this. I expect the Bills to come out here and stay heavy is what they want to do. I know you need to get out of here real quick. Score prediction for you?
Oh, I'll go Buffalo 28, Chiefs 27.
As a Bills fan, do you want the Bills to lose the regular season game to maybe change the tide for the postseason? That's the script.
I'm thinking of it as the Chiefs are the regular season opponent this week. So the job is to win this week. But what I will say is I don't think you're going to see Buffalo throwing to the running backs until the playoffs. Like Buffalo has last year one of the highest efficiency metrics thrown to running backs, but we did it the least amount of any team in the league. So my assessment is when we're the kryptonite for the Chiefs is to throw to the running backs, but you won't see that till we play in January. That's my theory.
Yeah. I seriously, if the Chiefs win this game, there will be a moment of pause. It's like, wait, is this what we want? Or the Chiefs, they have proven that they put stuff on the shelf. Like Andy Reid will not put his A+ stuff out there. And he's one of the few guys that you can actually believe that with because of what they do routinely. But I just, the worst unit in this, like I think about the Cowboys-Broncos game, right? How that game went. The worst unit in that game was the Cowboys defense, and it showed. I'll take the Chiefs 27-24. But I think, like you said, I think this game could be closer and more contested later on when that Bills defense starts improving.
Yeah. So, Price, it is great catching up with you. Thanks for
absolutely
prompting me to do this. I will see you on a podcast again soon.
Absolutely, for sure.
Thanks.